you left this rewarding high status job that you loved without a plan B. How, why? What were you thinking? No,
It's a
I'm just
good
kidding.
question. Because nobody does that, right?
Right.
You're not supposed to,
You're not
that's for
supposed to.
sure.
That's more of
You're
it.
supposed to stay there. And, frankly, I thought I would be there. I figured I would die at the microphone. I mean, I
Hmm.
really thought that I would be there probably for the rest of my career. But at some point, toward the end of those 11 years, the culture started to get to me in that workplace. And I started to feel disrespected by the people I was working for.
Hmm.
I always loved the people I worked with. The people I worked for were a different story. And I found that I was going home crying way more often than any human being should.
Yeah.
You shouldn't accept that as kind of part of your work life. And so there was a precipitating event that I felt was a bridge too far in terms of disrespecting me after almost a dozen years there. And so I made a really last minute decision. I mean, I had been thinking about it for a while, but at the moment that I decided to do it, I didn't have a plan.
Right.
I was angry and I was hurt, and I handed in my notice. And the sign to me that this was the right thing to do was when they didn't try to keep me. And so something was wrong, something was amiss, and I still look back on it and I haven't quite figured that all out.
Right.
But I did leave without a plan. Now I gave them 3 months notice, mostly because I was on a long-term project with the New York Times. And so I didn't want to leave that. And so it's not like I, had a hissy fit and up and left.
Right.
I also didn't want to leave them in the lurch without someone to host the show. So, but I did. And I also thought that I would have something else lined up by the time I left. I mean, I had 3 months
Right.
and I was at the top of my industry. Of course, I'm going to have a job. But when I left 3 months later, I had not taken any time to look for another job.
Yeah.
So when I left, I had nothing. I had nothing lined up at all.
It's interesting too because it's like the whole saying that it's a full-time job to look for a job. This is why. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like this is very true. But you did have that 3 months when you knew you were leaving, and so you like, how did you prepare, financially and emotionally to leave without the plan B? Because obviously you knew in that 3 months at some point it was going to come to that end, and you knew that you still didn't have it.
Yeah, you'd think so. You'd think so. No, it ended up being probably the busiest 3 months of my career.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 2012, and there was a presidential election underway. So we were doing road shows. We were doing our program Marketplace live across in cities across the country. Not only that, but I had this partnership project with the New York Times that I was working on, and a couple of other things as well. So I literally did not have time to certainly not look for another job. But beyond that, I didn't have time to think about what was about to happen.
Yeah.
I really didn't. And I know people think that that's crazy, but part of it was financially, I knew that my then husband could pay the mortgage. So, I think that having that off my plate to worry about helped.
Mm-hmm. Did you
But I
guys
also
discuss that ahead of time?
I just didn't think about it.
Did you and your husband discuss that, or were you like, I have now put in my notice and now I want to talk to you about this financial piece? Like, I'm just curious how like
N-
premeditated you were with it.
No, I mean, the day that I decided that I needed to quit, I left after work and went home and cried again in my backyard. And when he came home, I told him, I said, this is the final straw for me. And he had heard all the stories, and I don't think he was surprised. And he said, "Don't worry, we'll make it work."
Mm-hmm.
Um, we didn't really talk about it that much after that. I
Mm-hmm.
think in the back of my mind, I knew I could always freelance.
Yeah.
So I knew that I wasn't going to have no income whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, new in quotations.
Yeah.
But 25 years into a career, you figure that you're probably going to have work. Um, but again, it wasn't something that I prepared for financially, emotionally, psychologically,
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
So what happened? I mean, I'm so I'm like so drawn into this now. I need like step by step. So you leave, so you leave without this plan B. It's like let's not count the first week because I feel like the first week feels the equivalent to like maybe like your first vacation forever. So like what happens in the first like maybe 6 months after you leave without having that plan B? Like what emotions and financial strains, like anything like that happens.
Oh, all of it happened.
Yeah.
Um, and you're right. That first week is like, oh, I have the whole world ahead of me.
Yeah.
This is amazing. I can
Yeah.
do whatever I want. I feel
Yeah.
so good. And you know, I wasn't going to take it anymore. And I didn't.
I showed them. Yeah, you're really proud
Yes,
of yourself.
exactly. And then Thanksgiving came along. So that
Yeah.
was a nice distraction.
Hmm.
Had to deal with family and cooking and all that. But then December hit, and that's when I kind of started going, oh, wait a minute. I don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
And that was a weird feeling after years and years and years in the workforce, where, my time off was vacations. This time I didn't have anywhere I had to be. I didn't have anyone I needed to talk to. I mean, I did. I should have started, networking right away, but I just didn't. And part of me wanted to take some time to figure out what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And I gave myself that time. But then the panic started because of emotional things. Yeah, I worried a little bit about money, but we had quite a bit saved. And, again, my husband could pay the mortgage. And so, that was the big bill.
Yeah.
And I didn't really worry about that for a while. And I did start getting some freelance jobs. But the real killer for me was not having a purpose,
Yeah.
not having that somewhere to go, someone to talk to. And that was just completely foreign to me. And it sent me down a bit of an emotional rabbit hole, because I started to feel bad about myself
Yeah.
because I was no longer a productive member of society.